courtesies extended to the delegation since our arrival. After the successful hosting of UNCTAD, this is the second time I've experienced the excellent hospitality and arrangements which no doubt will contribute to the success of our meeting. Madam Chair, I'm delighted to be here and to be part of UNCTAD 14, as the themes and sub-themes for this conference very much relate to the issues and priorities of the Fijian government as we continue to deliver for our people. As you may be aware, Fiji is a small island economy that relies on its exports and imports to provide the goods and services required by its consumers, and therefore trade remains an integral part of the Fijian economy. Fiji's trade policy is characterized by an overall openness, complemented by an autonomous liberalization beyond WTO commitments, whilst also allowing the government to retain the policy space necessary to absorb external shocks and to account for changing trading circumstances. Fiji remains committed to pursuing policies aimed at promoting the expansion of markets at bilateral, regional and multilateral levels, as well as the diversification of Fiji's export product base. In Fiji's view, the maintenance of integrity and credibility of all of the multilateral trading system is a component in the mix of global policy approaches needed to ensure sustained economic growth. Even though some of the rules are burdensome on many developing countries and small and vulnerable economies, it is our considered view that the rules could be improved and be made relevant in order to make the multilateral trading system fair and inclusive for all members. Madam Chair, Fiji still remains fully committed to the Doha development agenda and has been disappointed at the inability of the WTO membership arriving at concrete developmental outcomes for the DDA since 2001. Fiji was very hopeful that we could get some positive outcomes from the 10th Ministerial Conference held here in Kenya last December. However, the eventual outcome, despite the extensive and intensive negotiations, was rather disappointing. The hope of the DDA was to bring tangible benefits for developing countries, including farmers and fishermen in rural areas where the potential for economic development through trade still burns high. Madam Chair, for Fiji and the Pacific, fisheries is an integral part of our way of life and a key resource. Therefore, it is important to ensure that fisheries resources are managed in a sustainable manner and that the activities of the present generation should not compromise the needs of the future generations. Madam Chair, in this regard, Fiji was disappointed that the Nairobi Ministerial Declaration did not contain legally binding commitments for members disciplining fisheries subsidies, despite the mandate to negotiate fisheries subsidies. In that regard, Madam Chair, Fiji urges all member countries to continue collaborating to seek a meaningful outcome at minimum in line with the global commitments made in the 2030 Agenda for Development. We do our own futures a disservice if we do not. Fiji, Madam Chair, is well on the path to social and economic transformation, and we are very committed to it. As part of achieving our economic vision, Fiji has completed its domestic processes in terms of the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, and the ratification process will be completed soon. This is timely following the imminent launch of the Multi-Donor Trust Fund for the United Nations Interagency Cluster on Trade and Productive Capacity by the end of this year. Fiji welcomes the new initiative of creating a new trust fund to fund cluster activities in the three prioritized areas, namely trade facilitation, trade and employment, and trade and value chains. Whilst we welcome and fully support the creation of the cluster-structured new trust fund in order to get the desired outcomes and impact, we would like to urge that this strategy will only be possible when businesses and investors focus not just on profits, but also on workers and their communities. Such an approach will need to integrate efforts to develop a well-trained, stable workforce as a foundation for the human capital, skills and predictability needed for long-term socio-economic growth and development. Madam Chair, we feel that the trade facilitation cluster will be another added vehicle to assist countries to tap into the funds to finance other aspects of the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, especially in cases where they may lack partners to assist them implement certain measures. With regards to the trade and employment cluster, the aspect of trade and employment has been the weakest correlation link in most economies. Effective delivery of this strategy, which produces results and makes a positive impact, should be at the core. And by focusing on trade As a creator of employment, we will be able to truly deliver on key aspects of development. Increased trade induces opportunities that lead to improvement of the lives of all people. In this way, increased trade will mean a win-win outcome for all. On one hand, businesses from large corporations to MSMEs, as well as the governments, benefit from increased trade flows and strong returns on their investment. On the other hand, workers and their communities benefit from stable incomes and rising standards of living. Madam Chair, the trade and value chains is another important cluster which, in our view, will help create and strengthen linkages along the supply chains at national, regional, and global level. This will further make trade more beneficial to all the players involved in the production process. In this regard, Fiji would like to request that the implementation of this proposed trust fund takes into account the unique circumstances of the countries, especially the LDCs and small and vulnerable economies, due to the distance from markets and the remoteness of our economies. It is also important to understand that even though the global economy is interdependent, certain regions, such as the Pacific, are mostly left out in decision-making bodies at the international level, as it is usually lumped together with Asia. In this regard, fairness and equity in participation and representation should be cornerstone of international system defense, rather than leaving it to individual members to argue for. We are working hard to ensure that the small voices of the Pacific are heard at the international level in negotiations and its regular work. Madam Chair, there is no greater advocate of climate change than our Fijian Prime Minister, who is a champion on climate change issues. Fiji was the first nation in the world to have ratified the Paris Agreement, and Fiji also became the first country in the Pacific to adopt a green growth framework, in which the sustainable development of our resources on land and sea is an overriding imperative. 5 months ago, Madam Chair, the biggest cyclone ever to make landfall in the southern hemisphere slammed into Fiji and devastated a significant portion of the country. Tropical Cyclone Winston killed about 44 Fijians and injured dozens more. It damaged or destroyed about 40,000 homes and 229 schools and other public buildings and infrastructure. Distinguished delegates, we desperately need you to side with us, not only to arrest the current state of global warming, but to help us adapt to the sea level rise and extreme weather events associated with climate change. Do not abandon us to the terrible fate that awaits us, though it's no fault of our own. It is a very real prospect that a single climate change event can destroy all the progress we are making to build strong economies and improve the lives of our people. Fiji also appeals to the global community for a much sharper focus on assisting small and vulnerable nations to build their resilience to climate change. We owe it to ourselves and to future generations not only to implement the Paris Agreement, but to go beyond for our children's sake and our planet's future. Madam Chair, building economic resilience for the most vulnerable is critical to our situation. This is an important aspect to island countries, especially in the Pacific region, where one natural disaster has the potential to bring a country to its knees. For us, there is a strong linkage between economic resilience and climate change resilience. This is the prime reason why Fiji and others who are directly affected by the natural disasters value greatly the global action on climate change. We also note that the transition to a green-blue economy is a long-term challenge. We will need to persevere and spare no effort as we move towards efficient use and conservation of natural resources and greater respect for our ocean, which is our lifeblood. Healthy oceans will guarantee the livelihood of future generations in the Pacific and the rest of the world. As we in the Pacific know all too well, it is a collective challenge that states and private actors must assume together. We must develop strategies and embrace approaches to business, trade, infrastructure, energy, food production, and employment that enshrine efficiency in the use of resources and minimize waste and pollution. Madam Chair, to make the transition to a green-blue economy, we will need framework conditions for innovation and a strong voluntary commitment from the business community, the scientific community, and civil society. Fiji's commitment to the 2013 Global Sustainable Development Agenda is absolute and is a cornerstone of our national policies. At every level, we have made the sustainable development of our resources, the reduction of poverty, and the social economic progress of the Fijian people our key priorities. Madam Chair, yesterday I had the privilege of being one of the panelists during the session on women as agents for economic change. Let me reiterate that women are the significant agents of change in our families, communities, and economies as a whole. It is their hard work and commitment that builds a strong foundation for the future of the family and that of the nation. At Fiji, we have demonstrated our commitment to gender equality aspects at every level. We have established unprecedented equality for all Fijians in our constitution. We are empowering women by improving their access to education, free schooling, scholarships, and tertiary loans. Madam Chair, we have modernized our laws to give women protection and equal rights and access also to opportunities. In conclusion, Madam Chair, Fiji is undertaking revolutionary reforms, and our vision is to make our country a vibrant, dynamic, and internationally competitive economy, serving as the hub of the Pacific. It is our hope that the outcomes of UNCTAD 14 will be translated from decisions to actions towards an inclusive and equitable global economic environment for trade and development. I thank you very much.